So you are going to want to watch this video all the way till the end because Ray Dalio predicts it is all over. We're going to be speaking about what Ray Dalio has been saying recently and why he believes that the worst is yet to come and why we're set to see something that we haven't seen in a very long time, if ever. So the question is, should we be worried? Well, let's have a look at this. We're going to start off quickly though by who Ray Dalio is. So for those of you who do not know, Ray Dalio is an American billionaire investor and hedge fund manager who has served as a co-chief investment officer at the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates, since 1985. He's best known for his track record alongside his length of time within the game. He's been in the sector for a very long time and therefore a lot of people trust him. And he believes that a civil war could be ahead and he's not entirely alone. For example, George Soros is also warning of a potential world war ahead, and again a lot of analysts are now thinking about this based on what we've been seeing in the past couple of months. So Ray Dalio is quite concerned about what's happening, or at least that is the sentiment he appears to be putting out. So let's have a look at a few of the things which he has been alluding to. So Ray Dalio says that debt related to the value of money is something that we are seeing currently. There's not enough money, meaning that they're going to print it. And we've been seeing that for a very long time, more and more money printing, especially in the last 2 to 3 years. And this is going to cause credit and inflation to rise. So we've been seeing, of course, inflation, especially recently, rising. And if you did watch our last video, we spoke about how the Fed have basically came out and said, yes, this is something that we're going to have to face as a consequence of all of the measures that have been taken in recent history. And also alongside this, we are seeing internal conflict. That's things on the political level, such as wealth gaps, and of course, the allegiance to particular political parties. Now, whilst this may not seem directly related to finances, it is something which Ray Dalio does see as significant, because it causes a conflict of interest and a conflict of power. And we're seeing this both domestically within the US, but also in the wider world, as emerging economies like China are changing effectively the power balance. Again, the US, whilst it is still the #1 economy, we're now seeing countries like China catch up. Again, India starting to catch up somewhat as well, but really the main threats are coming from countries like China. So the question is, what will this lead to? Well, here's what Ray believes based on what he has been saying. He believes that this will lead to money printing. This is something that we have already seen, which causes inflation. Well, he's been right on this. He says that at the current time, we are seeing a level of populism, which means that nobody on a political front wants to lose. And what is the consequence of that? Well, they're going to tell people what they want to hear. And then we see things like money being produced, printed by central banks because it's easier than taking more money out of tax. So again, going back to that previous point, doing something which is easier rather than doing the more sensible option to promote the beliefs which people want to conform to. And again, that does also lead back into populism. So what we're seeing here is the fact that nowadays, with no standard that money is tied to, there is no limit to how much money can exist, which devalues money. For instance, if there was a set amount of money in circulation, what would have to happen is we would have to manage this in a more efficient way. But with an unlimited amount of capital, well, if we run out of money, we can just print more, devaluing the money, leading to inflation, which we are already seeing. But the question is, how does this really play out? Well, Ray seems to believe that we're going to be looking at resource allocation becoming a political rather than economic issue, i.e. depending on which allegiance you join politically, dependent on what your beliefs are, and all that sort of thing. And again, to an extent, we are seeing this. What we're also seeing is working out how the wealth is distributed both domestically and internationally because of, like I said, the prior point about political distribution and also economic as well, but more interestingly about emerging economies. How is that money spread around the world? How does that affect the GDP of both the US and these emerging economies too? Well, he thinks that this has led to printing of money and therefore the devaluing, like we have mentioned, dividing the people on an economic basis. Again, then from that point they are divided further into a political basis, and then we see even more division. And he thinks this is going to be really interesting to see in the elections, how people vote in the upcoming elections in the US, but also in the international front. For instance, in the last 70 or so years since World War II, we've seen a pretty peaceful time. But previously we have seen the rise of the Axis and Allied powers, again before and during World War II. And he thinks it is possible that we could be seeing this sort of thing emerging now, with threats from Russia and China becoming more prevalent as time goes on. And the conclusion of this, because it has been a quick video, Ray believes that we are in a worrying place with increased dependency on other countries, such as China, to produce our goods. Greed and hubris is going on, leading to power struggles, again both domestically but also internationally. Money is being devalued, leading to a pure crisis. We're seeing that right now, with people having less and less money to spend. And segmentation of the world. Well, again, that goes back to the point of the world being split up based on political beliefs and alliances. So this is Ray's beliefs based on a lot of the things that we have heard him saying. Again, I did just compile a lot of this and wanted to speak about it more right now. So this is the quick rundown of what he has said, but let's have a look at what we can interpret from this, because a lot of this is not directly related to the markets. But when we look at this on a wider scale, we can see how it would have an impact. What we're seeing right now is a time of great division. And I think that Ray believes that this division, again going back to that point of the potential for a civil war, we're seeing so much division between political alliances, between the rich and the poor. And it's leading to a point where people are divided on a domestic level. Now coming into an international level, like I said, we're seeing countries like Russia pose threats. We're seeing countries like China step up their defensive operations, which also leads to further division on the global scale. And the question is, what effect does this have on the economy? Now coming down a bit further, we are seeing the devaluation of money through money printing. And again, this is something which we have seen consistently. And if you watched our video yesterday, we spoke about how the Fed said, actually, we're going to be seeing some pain in the future, because we can't sustain all of this printing and all of this quantitative easing and all of these measures without seeing some sort of a backlash, if you will. Because we cannot expect our actions to not have consequences, both good and bad. And we've seen nothing more than the good in the last couple of years. We've seen peace on a global scale. We've seen markets rally, especially in the last 10 years. And the point is, unfortunately, it doesn't look like this can last forever. So Ray Dalio, with these opinions, is just one of the people that I wanted to look at in this series, because I did want to share a bit of light and shed a bit of light on his opinion based on what he has been saying. So this is more of a video that's not directly related to the markets, but I think he does give an interesting perspective, because like he says, it will be very telling to see how this does play out on an economic scale. So that's it for this one. Just wanted to quickly run over what he has said, so thank you, and I'll see you all again very soon.